And I was recalling this guy that used to do some construction work that I knew in Syracuse when I lived there in Syracuse, New York. And he had been a Marine in Vietnam, and he had served 4 tours over there. And the last 3 were all volunteer, okay? I mean, boy, after my one, that was it. And I couldn't, but I asked him, I said, why would you keep going back? And he said, when I get home, I just found everything so confusing. He said, nobody understood. And I didn't know what to do when I got up in the morning. He said, when I was over there, everything was clear. My responsibilities were clear. My relationships were clear. My sense of purpose in life was absolutely clear to me, and I didn't have that when I came home, and I couldn't live without it. And I've never forgotten that conversation, how touched I was by that. And I think one of the things that your novel does, and that I see done by, a story like Big Two-Hearted River or All Quiet on the Western Front, which has an amazing description of that young soldier going home, is to, I think there's for someone who's going through that to read your book, they would feel a sense of companionship, of not being alone, which is, I think, part of what is so toxic to these people, these young vets that Adam was talking about earlier. So, for all the dangers of writing books like this, there's also, I think, the great gift of companionship that you have offered too. I had already, by the time I was 15 or 16, really fallen under the spell of literature. And I was a lousy student. And I disdained to pass a math course, which is why I didn't have a high school diploma. But I loved reading and I loved books, and I had formed the ambition by the time I was, 16 or so, that I wanted to be a writer. And I will admit that when I went in to the Army at 18, there was a somewhat, I had a motive that went beyond just getting rid of something that I knew I was probably going to have to do anyway. I thought it would be something that a lot of the writers I admired had experienced, and that would in some way feed the art that I hoped to practice someday. What I didn't notice perhaps enough was that all the writers that I admired were telling me not to do the very thing I was doing. But in any case, Did you have that kind of ambition at that age? I mean,
Well, I don't know if it was specifically something that would kind of influence work that would come later, but I definitely wanted some kind of life experience. And I felt like the life that I was living in Chesterfield County, Virginia, it seemed very small. So absolutely, the sense, there was definitely an element of wanting adventure, wanting excitement, wanting to, broaden my understanding of the world, to see more, to see what was out there. And I guess in a way I thought that, I was a shy kid, not particularly, confident in my own ability to sort of achieve my goals. And I did think that, well, they're gonna toughen me up, and they're gonna show me how to get stuff done. So in a way, yeah, I mean, and to be honest with you, and I think maybe not in the way I would have predicted, but the freedom, being freed from this idea of failure, this fear of failure, of what happens if I write and nobody likes it, what happens if I, whatever. Those kinds of fears, I don't know if they're universal, but I certainly experienced them. After I got back, and I decided that I really wanted to give it a shot, I said, well, if nobody likes my writing, at least they're not going to shoot at me.
What was it that that decided you to move your attempt to render this experience from poetry into fiction?
Yeah, I mean, I think well, I mean, one, I wanted the room, you know. I wanted the kind of space to let, you know, for me, very often a poem is something that happens quite instinctively. It's one of those things that if I don't get it right away, it's gone. And I felt like, and I don't know if this is true, but I felt like if I tried to write something longer, if I tried to put it into a prose piece, I would give myself more room to make the mistakes that I knew I was going to need to make. And I made plenty of them. So in a way, I mean, that was it, but I also wanted to, I don't know if it's just my particular approach to poetry, but it is kind of a singular way of looking at the world, and I wanted to try something new. I mean, I wanted to try something different. I'd been writing stories or attempts at stories since I was a teenager when I first started writing poems, and I guess I just had so many questions that baffled me that I knew that I needed to give myself the room to ask as many of them as I possibly could.